talk sport. Myk Aussie. Hello, mate.
Hey Jeff, how you going? Well, summer's here and Saturday Oz everywhere. Had Aussie Rules football, Gaelic football and CFL football. So I'll be hanging out with the kangaroos, the bears, the emus, the kookaburras and some real gorillas. So 22 degrees, finally summer got here and it's great to be out and about filming as well.
I love that. Your summer is 22 degrees and we're not far off that, and that's our winter. There you go, that's Canada for you. But, I'm always surprised there's such a big, strong AFL, Aussie Rules football presence in Canada, Myk. It's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. And as you know, I love talking about it. Toronto's got a big competition. Out there in Vancouver, the Burnaby Eagles have led the way in the 5-team competition. But Saturday here, I had a bit of a run with the Gaelic boys and the Gaelic football. Then I went across and watched the Calgary Kangaroos take on the Calgary Bears in the first game of the year. They had pretty close to 18 aside, so on a full side. But I don't know, something a little bit shonky went on. Troy Macri, one of the best players to ever play in Canada. He was a star 05 US Nationals. He rolled up and the big boss picked him as a Roo. He should have been a Bear and the Roos ran out winners 12 goals to about 6 points. So a little bit of shonkiness going on there, but it's great to see one of the best players ever to play in Canada, Troy Macri, play his first game in Alberta after playing out there in Vancouver a few years ago.
There's an upset. Now, every once in a while they field a team and send it over to Ireland to play this Gaelic football. What is Gaelic football like? Is it much different?
Oh, Gaelic football's good, and as you know, don't tell the ladies this, but I'm getting a bit older, so this year I've decided to play some Gaelic. It's a mixture of basketball, soccer, Aussie rules, so there's no tackling, so it's good for the defence. So any new young kid wanting to play Aussie Rules Footy, Gaelic's great in the defence side of things, because if you don't get the ball, you've got to really try and get it off them. You can't tackle, so it's not as rough, but it's a great game to play as well. Like I said, I'm getting a bit older, so decided to have a kick at Gaelic this year, but I might play later in the year for Aussie Rules. But the women, let's talk a little about the women, Jeff. On Saturday, the first ever intercity game of Aussie Rules Footy for women occurred. The Calgary Kookaburras, they formed 2 years ago and they beat the US girls last year. They drove up to Edmonton. They formed a team in Edmonton this year, the Edmonton Emus. So women's footy as well is going really well here in Alberta. The Emus and the Kookaburras. So well done to Jake and all the girls who have organised things. I actually went to their jersey presentation 2 weeks ago, professionally run, all the sponsors there, the girls get the jerseys on, so they're running it just like a men's footy team back home, so great growth in the women's Aussie Rules Footy over here.
Mate, what's the women's football like here in Australia? You know, I mean, it's weird that I've got to ask a guy living in Canada what's the level of it here is in Australia, but you don't hear about it at all, do you?
No, you don't, but I believe there's a few teams in Melbourne, and they're playing in Adelaide as well. And actually, one of the best players here is a girl from up in the Barossa Valley. So I met her last year and had a bit of a chat. So you're halfway across the world and you meet a girl from Nuriutpa, which is kind of interesting. But over here, it's mostly Canadian girls playing. There's only like 3 or 4 Aussie girls out of the 30 to 40 that they've got, so you've got to hand it to them. You see them running around there and they're getting into it just like us guys do, so I don't know, I kind of like it, because back home with all the Aussie girls are sitting back and gossiping and stuff about what their men are doing, where here they're just out there having a kick and having fun, so good on the Canadian women.
There you go. Hey, Damien's given us the call. G'day, Damien, how you going?
G'day, pal, really good. And g'day, Myk, how you doing?
Good, thanks, Damien, yeah.
Good. I just wanted to know whether you knew much about Myk Pike, Canadian who's playing AFL for Sydney.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Like, he played rugby union out there in Toronto, so obviously the Swans picked him up. Great to see the first Canadian ever playing in the AFL, and like I said, Toronto's got 10 teams of Aussie footy. It's a great story to hear a Canadian playing Aussie Rules Footy. It just shows, like we've talked before, Kevin Sheedy and all these guys, they're looking overseas to bring the Irish in, or the or the other players from other countries, because, you know, they believe if they can get a good athlete, they can now train them into Aussie rules.
Well, that's all good for Canada. Do you reckon there might be a few local mums and dads, you know, trying to put little Johnny up in terms of someone who's been, you know, following the game forever, gone through the you know, Oz kick and all that sort of stuff, and looking for a crack, just a shot, and that one slot is actually taken by a Canadian? Do you know what I mean? Do you think people might get their nose out of joint?
Well, if they do, they need to open their eyes up and realise that it's a great thing that Aussie Rules Footy is now exploding around the world. It's only happened the last 10 years, so I don't know, Jeff, I could argue with you on that one, because I think it's fantastic. And like I said, Kevin Sheedy is one of the guys that has always promoted it as much as anyone, and there's a lot of people over here doing a lot to promote the Aussie Rules Footy, so I don't know, I think it's great, and more international people to play Aussie Rules Footy make the AFL is only good for the recognition of the game worldwide. According to Recession Watch, but it seems to be biting a little bit. You got a Phoenix team in trouble. Oh, wow, you talk about Port Adelaide Power being in trouble, are they? $1 million or $2 million in debt? Well, the hockey over here, the NHL, the ice hockey, the Phoenix Coyotes, they've been losing something like $30 million. That's $30 million US.
Oh.
Wow. They went to bankruptcy court, and Mr. Blackberries, all you people out there with the, well, they call them crackberries over here, the Blackberry cell phones, Mr. Blackberry, Jim Bolsilli, a Canadian company, he's gone in and he's trying to get the Phoenix Coyotes back to Canada, but the commissioner of the hockey, Gary Bettman, he's just a... I don't like the guy. I don't dislike too many people, but this guy's a bit of a goose, and they're trying to hold it up. But how can you lose $30 million US a year? True story, Jeff, and not good, you know.
What about other teams, you know, broadly? Baseball, you know, football, all that sort of stuff. Are they doing it tough? Sponsors pulling out and what have you?
The CFL's doing well. Occasionally a Canadian Football League team will get in trouble, but they're doing well, and that's another thing. I went and filmed two of the best kickers, that's the goal kickers and the punter, Damon Duval. No, it's not David Duval, the golfer. Damon Duval from the Montreal Alouettes and Sandro DeAngelis for the Calgary Stampeders. Had a great little one-on-one interview with them about kicking and punting. They were teaching all the young kids. And there we go again with the Aussie Rules Footy. We've talked about it before. There's 3 Aussies in the NFL, Matt McBride, Sth Rocket and Ben Graham. And these Canadian kids now realise that if you can do an end-over-end drop punt in the CFL or the NFL, it helps, and the Aussies have changed the way NFL punting occurs. So another good coincidence with Aussie Rules Footy in the sport over here.
Yeah, you'd have to say. And just like your Canadian playing for the Swans, you know, here's a few Aussies playing for American football, and people are talking about it. Like, it absolutely does raise the profile of the game from the other side of the Pacific, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely, and you know, I'm good friends with the guy that ran the clinic here over the weekend, Santa 68, and you know, I have a bit of a chat with him, because there's no question that I could get out there, teach some of these young kids how to do a drop punt end over end, because when these guys are too far out to kick a field goal, they can then use the drop punt and land it on the 0 to 10 metre line, and then it can spin backwards, so a huge advantage. And also, you can kick the drop punt very high and accurately, which gives the special teams players enough extra time to run down there and hopefully block the ball, and like I said, put it on the 0 to 10 yard line, and that's a huge advantage. And Darren Bennett, the Aussie, we've talked about it before, he did that. He changed the world. Because if they're using the screw punt, it's inaccurate, can go anywhere. So yeah, we can hopefully see an Aussie in the Canadian Football League and more in the NFL, no doubt, coming. Terrific. For sure.
All right, thank you, Myk, and worth checking out Myk Aussie Sports TV. There's a link through the Jeff Burzacott page at 5AA.com.au, or you can go to Myk Aussie MYKwebTV.com. Myk, I'll catch you next week.
All right, good talking to you, Jeff.